And there we are. We're live again, Halk.
Feels like it's been forever, JT.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, bud.
It's
What's the
exciting.
cold treating you up there?
It's cold. Yeah, it's going to get a lot colder next week, too.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah.
I
So I
won't
went down.
brag about the ceiling fan going here in South Florida.
Must be nice.
It was raining all day today.
Was it? Nice. So this is going to be a fun episode. We're going to have our first watch party.
Yeah.
And
really cool video, too. A little piece of Fluke history we're going to watch.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit different, little nostalgia. And we're actually going to talk about fluke fishing that doesn't include gulp grubs.
Not even remotely. It's going to include a lot of crazy things, though.
Yeah.
There's going to be some really nutty stuff we're going to see. I mean, and preface that with we've all used bait. If you're of a certain age, if you grew up, if you're, let's say, 30 something and older, you've used bait at one point exclusively for fluke. If you fluke fish that long. So this is going to be a little bit of a blast from the past, but even with that out of the way, it's out there, I think. Like some of what he preaches, it's like, whoa, is he really doing that? Is he? And I don't want to give some of it away, but it's very interesting. And so I almost forgot, JT. Can I give a shout out to my buddy Doc, who's going through a little bit of a bad spell? He's got a little bit of a virus going, which we know he's been fighting cancer for over 2 years now. Everything gets heightened when you have no immune system, basically. So, guys, let's keep Doc in our thoughts and prayers. And knock on wood, he pulls through quickly, and we're back to busting each other's humps very soon.
Mm-hmm. Love you, Doc. Wish you the best, buddy. So this video, hopefully, you'll get to see this soon. But we're gonna watch old video from, what would you say, circa 1985, 87?
Just based on his age, I thought a little later. I actually thought early 90s.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
and
Charles
just to point out, Sam Alessi, Joe's new sign-in apparently disappeared. Look at that. He's back to the old name. That's Joe, not Sam. Anyway, Sam's his wife.
So we got a couple. We'll just go through this real quick. Little shout out to James Flynn. How you doing, James? Happy New Year to you as well, Philly. And let's see. There's a good one. Bait equals fewer fish, but better fish. We're gonna find out. We'll find out if that's the deal. Sherlock Holmes here. Yep, that's my Savinelli autograph.
You need one of those weird hats.
So I have a giant pipe collection. That's my other hobby. But this is from 1896. So this is one of my best pipes. Yeah. Prayers for Doc. More prayers for Doc. Well wishes. Good stuff. And there we go. And Charlie just popped in. There we go. All right. So again, this video is Captain Charles Nappi, world record fluke holder. And we're going to watch this video together. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll pause it here and there and make comments. His New York accent is so perfect. He sounds just like a Montauk fluke fishing captain.
He sounds Brooklyn to me. It doesn't even sound Long Island, personally.
You'll know better, but it's perfect. I mean, he's great. So it's one of my favorite fluke videos of all time. So you ready to go? Ready to watch this?
Yeah, and maybe just preface it that this is a seminar he gave, right? We said you're thinking mid-'80s, I'm thinking early 90s, on fluke catching. Very similar to what Skinner does now at all these shows he attends, the saltwater expos in the spring. So this is probably the original one of those for fluke. It's very interesting. You can tell he's very passionate about it. But the techniques are interesting, like I said, even by bait standards.
Yes, and the rigs and all that stuff, and he was actually a big tackle manufacturer back at the. So let's get watching.
Yeah.
And we'll make comments as we go and good stuff like that. So hopefully everybody can hear this well.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Captain Charles Nappi, and I'm a fisherman just like all you people are. No more, no less. I just got lucky, and I'm fishing when there was a lot of fish around. Tonight, I'm going to try and teach some of you, or hopefully all of you, catching big, giant fluke, well-record fish, and trophy fish. So, I guess we'll start with the basic thing. The first thing everybody has to have is tackle, of course. Now, most of you know I'm a tackle manufacturer, so I wouldn't bring anybody else's tackle, but I'm going to show you why my tackle is the best. I know it, and people that catch 16, 15, 14-pound fluke know it too. This is my wide gap rig. I usually bring bait with me, but tonight I'm going to show a video with the baits in the water and hooked on each rig. That's the wide gap for killies and use in bay where there's not much tide. This is the tandem for snappers and big fluke bellies and double baits like 3 sand eels and 3 sand eels and squid. But you have to use it in a strong tide. It's a very heavy rig. I caught the biggest fluke in the world with a live snapper. And you know why I say it? I knew the fluke were there, just like I said before. The draggers in the spring catch 20-pound fish out of Montauk. Now, I know they're feeding in the fall, so I go fishing there all the time. I had a 14-pounder, biggest one I ever got on regular baits. And I was sea bass fishing commercially for the market. They were worth a lot of money, so we didn't have a charter, so we went out fishing for the market. And we were catching snappers about that big on the sea bass hooks. At the same time, the fluke were migrating. So after 20 years of trying to figure out what to give them, that's all it took. I held it in my hand and said, that's it. And that is it. But he hit he hit the head of the bait. So I'm glad I had the double hook rig on there. This is the one I got on a live snapper.
It's a little lighter now.
Yeah. Well, he's lighter and I'm heavier, so I ate him. I want to show you the baits in the water. That's right. This is how you hook. I try to explain about the killies for the wide gaps and stuff. It's set right on to go.
Speaking of the wide gap, you like that type of hook?
Yes, for the bays and killies, very light wire. Usually catches the fluke here, so you don't kill the shorts. And the more the fish pulls, the deeper the hook goes in. It's copied off the Japanese longline hook, I believe, anyway. Okay, now we're at the cutting board. Everything I've taught you in this seminar and in the baiting instructions on my card will be no use to you unless you bait my rigs right. There's been 7 world records caught on these rigs so far, and yet I've met some people that can't catch a fish with them. So this is one of the most important parts of this tape. First, we have a starter bait. We have to have a starter bait to catch a fluke that we could use for doormat bait. Usually you catch fluke around average size with a starter bait. And the starter bait We take a squid, put the knife in under the collar, slit it right down to the end, and just open it up like this. We take the insides and the mantle out. Mantle is just a piece of plastic. The bait will have not the right flutter in the water with that in there. Now we clean the backside of the squid. Take the skin off. Get a nice white piece of bait then. And that's what we have after we clean it and cut it down the collar. Now you can see the squid is already tapered to a point.
It's like a perfectly cut
where the
piece of
tail
squid.
was. So what we do is just make straight slits like this. You can make quite a few pieces of nice bait with one squid. Now, we should slit the tail a little bit. Gives the bait a lot more undulation in the water, and it's much more attractive to the fish. Okay, now we have 3 nice pieces that we cut off that, and still half of it left. Now, we take the single wide gap hook. It's much better for lighter baits and in bays where the current is not very strong. We put the hook right in the eye of, this is a spearing, a nice spearing. We use smelts, which is a very good bait, or killies, or sand eels. You hook them all the same. Now we put the squid with the split tail, hook the
AJT,
widest
pause
end
it for a second.
as close to the top as you could get it.
Good.
Yeah, so just an interesting observation. Going back to my bait days, we'll dive into some of the nuances of what he's talking about, particularly the catching Fluke to use as bait in a second. But I never hooked them through the eyes. They would rip off super easy. I like to do it under the chin and out the top of the head. I felt like that was more solid hookup. Now, maybe he does it to get better movement. That makes sense. But I found that very interesting that he did that, because oftentimes, especially if you bought frozen spearing, you had no chance of that bait staying on if you hooked it between the eyes. I wanted to bring that up before we watch the rest of this. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and another good point to make too is what he's doing. He's taking us. His Fluke catching system with bait is to first use a rig with starter bait to catch a small fluke to use as cut bait.
Yeah.
So this is the bait to catch the first piece of bait that he's going to use to catch
and before anybody freaks out, the regulations, even when I started fluke fishing, were very liberal. I want to say it was something crazy like 10 fish at 14 inches, if I'm remembering correctly, going back into the 90s. So he's not doing anything illegal. So keep that in mind when you watch the rest.
When the Fluke comes up. Yeah, I think at this time it was 14 inches was the minimum size limit.
Yes.
So here we go. Here we go.
And that's our starter bait. This is very important. We need a starter bait to catch the fluke, like I said, because fluke belly is one of the best doormat baits there are. Now, when we catch the fluke with the starter bait, we fillet it in quarters. Go right down a lateral line with your knife.
That's about the size of the fluke you catch, Halk.
He's using my fillet technique, I might add. I quarter them. I don't do
Like
that whole.
Now we have to make quarters out of this. So You have a nice piece of fillet for bait. Now you still have 3 more sides on this fish. I'm using a dark side. Let that fool you. A lot of people like the fish with the white side, and it catches a lot of fish. But the dark side always seems to catch bigger fish, for me and for some other people too.
I'm going to pause it right there because some people may or may not know that it is now illegal to use the brown side of a fluke fillet for bait. You can only use the white side in the state of New York, which is crazy. I can't believe somebody actually took the time to think that through, but
Yep.
that's another thing that's changed.
Now we're going to take this bait and split it down the middle. Now we have 2 nice pieces of bait out of that 1/4. Now we take the tandem rig. The wide gap rig or the single hook rig would be no good for this bait because your hook would be way up here and there'd be too much bait trailing in the back. So what we do is take this strip that we just made and put the top hook, same principle as the wide gap, through the widest end, as close to the top as you could get it. Now the thing is with this bait, you have to lay the hook alongside it, the bottom or stinger hook, a lot of people call it. We have to lay it alongside it so it won't be too taut. You can see just where you have to put that hook. Figure for the bend in it. Now, that's a beautiful piece of bait, but to make it even nicer, we can split the tail on this.
I love the thought he gives this.
Now that's how that would be in the water. It's very nice, very natural, and the big fluke love it. Now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and there'll be 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces of bait out of that one started fluke that you caught. Now I'm going to show you the bait this rig was originally designed for. That is to make it look like a school of fish in the water. Everybody that fishes for fluke usually uses the same as my starter bait here, either with a killie or one fish. And big fluke are very used to seeing it, and they're probably very smart to it by now. So this is why this rig was designed this way, to make a school of fish. You have 1 spearing on a top hook, 1 spearing on a bottom hook. Now we put another spearing on each hook, the same through the eye socket. And another hook. Now you'll see the effect this will give you in the water. It'll look like a school of spearing swimming down there on the bottom. Now to enhance this bait, there's a squid on it too. But the top piece of squid would be too long. That would interfere with the bottom hook. We can't do that, so we have to measure it up alongside these little fish and cut it right there, just straight across. And once again, we hook it through the widest end, like that. It doesn't interfere with the bottom hook. And on by there. The squid makes the more flutteration in the water. It looks really great. And on the bottom hook, we could make the squid long. There's nothing to interfere. And that's a real nice bait, and it's fooled many big dogs for me. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine got a world record a couple of weeks ago, baited like that. Got a 15-pound fluke on 16-pound Tralli line.
That's mono.
The record was 3.5 years old. He beat it by a pound, and he fooled a fish with this. Okay, now the next bait for doormats would be a whole squid, a finger squid. Now, how to bait this squid is almost the same way as the fluke belly. You have to lay the hooks alongside. First, we'll put the bottom or stinger hook right through the eye of the squid, in through one side and out the other. Then we put the bottom hook right in the tip of the tail. Now, that's a very natural looking bait. It's probably the best bait you could use, but porgies, sea bass, everything loves squid. And you'll be fishing down there and something will tear the head off and you might not even realize it. And you'll be fishing down there with a bait that's not effective enough to catch big fluke. So this is great when there's no other fish around. You'll probably catch really big doormats with a whole squid like that. It's happened quite a few times, but like I said before, everything loves squid, and fish with that. And then when you catch a fluke, by all means use a fluke. It's much tougher for the fish to get off, and even if the little fish do bite it, they can't do any damage to it. Now we have to go over this once again. This was our starter bait. Okay, we fish with that until we catch this. Then we fillet that up in quarters like I showed you to get strips like this. And the bait will look like this. We'll split the, it'll be a real nice looking bait. And like I said before, the dark side catches a lot of big fish. When you catch whole squid in the water, they're almost the same color as that skin on a fluke. So I imagine that's why it appeals to the bigger fish. Now we got the school of fish with the squids and the split tails, which my friend caught the world record on. And this is the whole squid. See how nice that is? Now, this has to be a little taut at all times. A little bit of slack in there. If it's too taut, it'll be the wrong way. And I'll show you what I mean. See? It'll pull the head up and bend the squid in. And that's no good. It's too taut. You gotta always have a little bit of slack in here. Just like with this. You see there's a little bit of slack in between the two hooks? That's very important. Now, even though the baits look great here on the table, and they really do, they look nice. Sure that you're going to be effective when the bait is down bottom with a fluke are. You have to lay your bait in the water as you're drifting. And watch it drift. Let it a foot down and watch it swim. If it swims the way they look here, you're fine. And then you let your bait down about 2 feet at a time, nice and easy. Otherwise, the baits are very big. And even though they might weigh more than the sinker, when you put it in the water, the sinker is going to go down first, and the bait has flotation, so it's going to come up and twist around your main line. You'll be fishing down there with the line all twisted around, and you won't catch a fish. So that's important. Okay, now that I've showed you how to bait these rigs to catch doormat fluke, let's put them in the water and see what they look like. Now, this is our starter bait that we talked about right from the first. Oh, you see that? Yep. Did you see the snapper go after that? That's some rig. Did you see that? Oh boy. This is the bait that we need to catch the first fluke so we can fillet it in quarter. Okay, now as good as the baits looked on the board, you can see them swim.
Got a little bit of a buffering problem, huh?
That's
Do you?
swimming really
Is it
nice.
bad?
Am I the only one that's getting a delay
Now,
with
as good
the
as the
video?
baits looked on the board, you have to swim them in
No.
the water and right. That's the final test. That bait will catch a nice big fluke. This is the baits I used to fool that big fish I had on in Horton's Point. And you could see why. This should fool any big fluke. It's not like anything they've seen. A whole school of fish going by them. Look at that. Wow. That's beautiful. And you'll notice the little sand deal bead on my rig and the split tail in the tube. It looks like all a part of the gang. Now here comes the whole squid. Look at that in the water. Like we said before. Now, with a killie, there's an eye cavity, a socket, right on top of the eye. And
Is it better now, Halkias?
the light wire hook is very good for them because they can swim natural. And you'll feel the hook go into the eye socket without puncturing anything. Because of the bend of this hook, it's a little tough to get it in there. But that's it. That's the eye socket. It's a cavity up, and they swim very natural this way, as opposed to hooking him in a lip. Look at this. Looks like he's chasing that little tube there. Look at him swim. And they'll stay like that all day long till a predator fish hits him. Is that nice? Woo, is that nice? The light wire hook, he has no problem swimming. So when you're fishing with killies, which is probably the most popular fluke bait there is, they use it in the bays and all on Reynolds Channel and all over here. I think hooking them through the eye socket as opposed to hooking them in the lip is much better. And when you're through, if fishing is slow for
Look at that rod and reel, Halk. It's a boat rod.
you don't get a bite, you just unhook the fish.
Like a broomstick.
Now, I like this, that he talks about hooking it through the eye socket repeatedly, and now he's going to talk about how you don't catch a fish, take it out, release it, it's going to be fine.
Oh, yeah,
The fish
perfect.
is unhooked. His eyes are still into.
Yeah, it's
Tack, nothing wrong with
really
it.
slow now, JT.
Now, you
Is
have
it?
to have a
All right.
double
Not sure why.
hook rig
Got good
for
signal.
this.
Yeah, it could just be the live stream is impacting. You know, you got multiple things running at the same time, maybe.
This is a heavy bait, and you want to make sure if
Still
the
bad?
fish hits it short that you get them. So what we do is with this top hook, we do the same principle as the killie. There's an eye socket here too. Right in there, like that. Now, the back hook we got to be very careful with. Close to the fin right here as possible. Just a hair more will puncture the fish's spine and he won't be able to swim. Woo! Yeah, he was out of the water for a while. He'll come around in a little while. I wanted to hope he'd come around in a little while. Okay, he's going nice now. He's going nice now, and that's the way he'll be swimming in front of your fluke. The big fluke on the bottom. Looks like he's chasing that little sand deal, just about got it. Oh, there he goes. That's the right way to hook a fish. Look how natural that looks. That fooled the biggest fluke ever caught in the world on rod and reel. And I'm sure you can see why.
We're going to pause it there, and we're going to make this a
Those hooks
two-part
are
episode. So we'll have another watch party.
not bothering him at all.
What do you think, Hal? When do you want to come back?
Just a little wait, but look at him
Maybe
go.
in 2 weeks. I don't know.
What a bait.
Let's
Next
say,
week, I don't care.
you want to
You
do next
too.
week?
I'll
Let's
do
do
that
it next week. Next Friday. All right. Next Friday, 8 p.m., we'll be back again for part 2. And we'll start.
We got a
right
lot
from
to
here.
talk about right now, don't we?
Yeah, we do. I want to make sure that we're not having buffering issues for whatever reason.
Yeah. There's definitely some
Um,
delay because I still heard the audio from the video after you paused it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think
I
what
saw
we'll
you
do
pause
is,
it. I could still hear Charlie talking. So there's a lot to dive into there.
yes, there is. Let's. I think what we should do is save it. Let's save it because I've got some. Let me see if I can get this buffering issue fixed. Actually, let's see.
So when you don't have the video, there's no buffering. It's when the video is playing that the buffering.
Just on the
happens.
video. Okay, good deal. All right, so we're good. All right, so let's dissect what. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, it's so random. I have no notes, but the first thing, immediately he talked about the migration and how the draggers are catching them, it offshore, and it just reinforces what I think is one of the primary reasons we're seeing a precipitous decline in fluke is that a lot of the big ones are getting caught up in the draggers in deep, deep water. That's just an aside. He mentioned something interesting about when he baits the hooks. If there's porgies around, if there's sea bass around, they might get the killies, but the squid is harder to get off. I don't ever remember in the years and years that I fished catching as many sea bass as we do now. And I know Skinner has talked to me about when he grew up in the Long Island Sound, and he used to dive and catch lobsters and blackfish and everything under the sun. He never saw a sea bass. Now they're loaded in the Sound, loaded. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if one of the reasons that gulp seems to now work better than bait, and I'm not disputing that bait works because we've all used bait. And I guarantee you, every single person in this live stream has used bait at one point or another. And most of us only used bait for years. But is it possible that the absolute skyrocketing of black sea bass numbers has now caused bait to be less effective than gulp? They'll still hit the gulp, but a good fisherman knows the difference between a sea bass hit and a fluke hit. And my experience is if you don't set on those sea bass hits, you won't rip the tail off. So presumably, and that you don't have that guarantee with a piece of squid. You don't have that guarantee with a spearing. I'm thinking, all these things he's saying are 100% true, but may not work in 2025. That's what I'm saying.
I could see that. I agree with that. I just think that I think gulp is you can still get big fluke. We've caught multiple double digits on gulp.
You have, yes.
But I think it's I personally think it's more of a numbers bait. I think a big fluke, let's say a 11-pound, 12-pound and up size fluke, is going to be more inclined to eat a giant piece of bait like that, in my
You know what we
opinion.
have to do, JT? We have to have a big fluke off one day when I'm not chartering this year. We'll get you on my boat, or I'll take the ferry over. We'll get on your boat. We'll go to our big fish spot that you and I share. One of us will use big baits, and when we know the big fluke are there, right? There's a stretch where we catch them, and one of us will use gulp, and we'll have to compare and see who does better.
I would love to do that. I think that would be a great experiment. And what I'm going to do is I actually have an old Charles Nappi rig that's still in the package that I found. And so I'm going to take it apart, build some more fluke rigs that are very similar to his. And we can certainly do that.
You'll have to use, though, a Penn beef stick with a international 114H and 40-pound 40-pound mono. Yeah, we just have to keep it consistent with the condition, with everything he was using.
Sure. I am all for it. I'm excited. I actually was looking today to find those little green glass beads that he had on the front of his rigs. It's like it's almost the size of a marble. So I definitely think that would be a lot of fun to do. It'd probably be a fantastic video.
How about him? His whole strategy is catching 14-inch fluke just to use them as bait.
Yeah.
Wow. Can you imagine that today with our 3 fish per person limit at 19? If you decide you're going to catch a fluke just to cut the white side, which is the only side you're allowed to use, and you got to keep the carcass on board too, just to use the white side as bait, that would be something.
Yeah. Yeah. Times have definitely changed. So here we got a couple questions here. When is that stretch exactly you're talking about? Our big fish time? It changes every year. It really has. I think the last like 3 or 4 years, it's been different.
There's no predicting it, Joe. Last year we had 1 big fish in July, and then quite a few big fish August into September. There was no numbers though. Other years, right? You had a run. Was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago, JT? You had a run of really big fish.
Yeah, that went from, I want to say, the beginning of July until mid-September. And then it was once we caught the first big dogfish. Actually, it was Sweeney who was fishing with me. John and JT were with me, and that was like the day or two before we had caught 2 fish that were between 9 and 11 pounds. And the next day we went, when I went with Sweeney, I don't think we caught any fluke. I think we caught 1, and he caught like a 5-foot-long dogfish, and the water was very cold.
So you're saying he caught a dogfish longer than him?
I'm not going to say that,
but
it was a big dogfish. But anyway, yeah, it is crazy. It changes every year, and I think a lot of it has to do with the water temperature and when the bait arrives. Yeah. Look at this year. This year, the water temperature took forever, and our big fluke areas took a long time before they got to their peak. And we only had probably like a 3-week window. You had got a 12-pounder. We had caught another one that was probably 12, 13, 14 pounds. And, I think we caught a couple 10s maybe mixed in there. But definitely a shorter period of time this past season.
Yeah, go to the last question, participation trophy. It's not a question, it's a statement. So this is a really contentious point with the DEC. I'm trying to pick my words correctly. So one of my friends, a client actually, Mitch Good, he's the one of the partners, one of the 2Ms in M&M Fluke Bellies, and they have to go out of their way to prove to the state DECs that they've used legally harvested fluke to catch those, and they have to have an FDA tag on them. Like, there's all this crap they got to go through. And in fact, I want to say it's Jersey. I could be wrong, that they're not allowed to even sell them. And I know everybody does it, and I know the party boats do it and the charter boats do it, but be prepared if you have fluke bellies on your boat to catch grief from your DC police if they board you. You are supposed to only use the white side, and you are supposed to have the carcass on the boat. I know it sounds ridiculous. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm not saying it's right. It's not.
I think it's ridiculous
when you use those, because they expect you to use that day's catch. And I get kind of the logic behind it. They don't want people keeping short fluke, filleting and releasing them, and having the fluke bellies. That's kind of the logic behind it, which I get. So I don't use fluke bellies for that reason, unless somebody brings M&M fluke bellies or bring their own fluke bellies, and I tell them, if we get boarded, these are your fluke bellies. I had nothing to do with it, because it really is too controversial a thing with the DEC. And this is a true story. I think I've told this before. We were fishing Montauk one day, me, Sweeney, and Doc, years ago, in the cobia. And it was a slow day. We caught like a keeper-sized fluke, but not much more than that. And we decided to fillet it and use the bellies. So we did, and we kept the carcass on board. Out of all the days we got boarded, that's the day we got boarded. And we caught grief, and the officer said, I'm not going to write you a ticket because you kept the carcass, you did everything right, but just know you are not allowed to fillet the dark side. You cannot use the dark side for the bellies. You can only use the white side. And that blew our mind. Like, if you have the dang carcass, what difference? People measure it nose to tail. And I know you were surprised at the dark side comment, JT, when Captain Nappi said, everybody likes to use the white side, but I find, and a lot of my friends who catch big fish too, find that the dark side works better. That was my attempt at that accent. I feel
I missed it because we buffered out. I apologize, buddy. Buffered out. We're having some technical issues. I'm not sure what's going on. Let's real quick. I want to get some of these questions and comments in. I agree wholeheartedly on this. Yes, 100%. And we're going to be doing some next drift videos out in the ocean with cut bait, live bait this year. We're going to do definitely do some of that out in the ocean in 130 to 200 feet of water, out on basically on the tuna grounds. That's what we're going to be doing a bunch of videos this year.
And JT, just not to cut you off, because I know you're answering questions, but he mentioned catching a huge fluke at Horton's Point, which is like a prime Long Island Sound spot off Southold for big stripers. Just reinforcing something you and I have talked about, right? You talked about it with tuna, but I think where there's stripers, that structure lends itself to big fluke.
100%. And I think places we've talked about it before, places like the Race, places like the Gut, there are giant fluke in those spots. It's just a matter of when you get there and when you fish for them and getting a bait down to them.
Yep. Agree.
Yep. 100%. Let me just go through this. Coming 22 pounds. Yep. A little over 22 pounds. I know there were a couple that were caught. I know the draggers have caught bigger, but that is the current world record. Let's see. You got another question here. Doing any fishing other than stripers from the surf? No. Excellent. Welcome, Brian. Please make sure you subscribe to Jigging Jerks and Next Drift. You can learn a lot. I can't see it past my camera.
Bluefish strips have been successful for me in early ocean bite, mid-June to July. I'll be very honest. I always find that when we've kept a bluefish and filleted it it's like a calling card to every dogfish in a 5-mile radius. That's our experience. I'm sure they
Agreed.
work if the dogfish aren't around, but we stopped doing that because of the dogfish.
Yeah. And motorboat can of worms. But have you seen the changes NOAA is proposing for bottom fishing on the east coast of Florida?
Oh,
Yeah, have you
God.
seen that, John?
I have not. Is this like circle hooks, Brendan, or something worse?
Well, it's worse. I'll send you the link.
Okay. I have
Yeah.
not seen it. Rick actually went fishing off the East Coast today and caught some down in the Keys and on his buddy's boat because he didn't bring the Blue Jay down, and caught some giant mutton snapper from 13 to 15 pounds.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Nice. And another question or comment here. Sea robin strips. Yep. I
Yeah,
haven't
I
done
agree.
well with sea robin strips, but they definitely do stay on a lot better.
A lot better.
Yep. Yeah, this video is packed with information that even though a lot of the stuff is old school, there's a lot of it that's still very relevant today. And I think after we watch part 2 together, I have some comments and things that I'm going to hold on to until after we watch that, because I've seen this video, I can't even tell you how many times, and I learned something new every time I listen. And we'll get into the second part of the video. I think he actually kind of drops a clue as to where he caught the world record. A lot of people think it was frisbees. They talk about frisbees off of Montauk. I don't think that's where he caught it. And I think he accidentally tells us later on in the video where he caught the world record. And I believe it 100%. I'm convinced it's where the world record was caught.
And by the way, kudos to him in like the 70s. It's not really an age known for technology, right? They didn't have the sophisticated methods we do today. Just the fact that he's got their migration patterns locked down. And that's just from experience. That's from being part of that Montauk fishing community and talking to the commercial guys. Like I think of a guy like Jamie Carasimo who runs the Miss Montauk fleet and his son Tyler, and they are like this with the commercial guys. That's why you see Jamie does some of these long range trips now and catches some big fluke, because my presumption, I have no proof of this, but my presumption is where he's fishing, he's getting intel from his buddies that are draggers.
100%. We were, not to give away, and I'm not going to say where we were tuna fishing because it would definitely give away one of his spots. But one of the draggers were coming back in from the tuna grounds, and I saw a dragger, and next thing I know, I saw them one of their trips with the charter trips up near the shore, and next thing you know, he made an about face, headed right out to where that dragger was, which was the tuna grounds, and they ended up later on that day, I think it was on Facebook, they had boated a bunch of doormats.
Yeah.
And I knew exactly where he was.
I know. I remember talking to you about that.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Go to the Philly Man Pete's. Brendan, thanks. I see that. That's crazy if they approve that. But go to Philly Man Pete's comment.
Let's see this one here.
Yeah, don't forget that woman from Jersey's fish that was DQ'd.
Yes.
I believe the weight. You are correct. And that fish probably deserves a video at some point too, JT, because this is like one of those things that there's so much evidence that that fish was gotten under less than, let's say, moral ways.
Mm-hmm.
Notwithstanding that, we have no proof. And how do you tear somebody apart with no proof other than very what's the legal term when they have evidence but it's not direct evidence, not anecdotal, not ancillary. Anyway,
I'm 3 beers in, Halk. It's getting late.
Yeah. And I'm on my second beer. That's why but yeah, her husband was worked on a dragger boat. She had a few world records. The fish had marks on it. The fish got eaten by a raccoon. It's a insane conspiracy story.
And her husband was a commercial fisherman, and that's
Yes.
I think what was the thing that raised
And
the
they could
biggest
see
eyebrow.
dragon marks on the
They
fish.
had like it's something to do with the nets or
And
something
then
like
the
that.
fish got
Who knows?
eaten by a
There we
raccoon.
go.
It was
In case he-
circumstantial evidence. Thank you, Philly Man Pete. That's what I
circumstantial.
was.
There we
There
go.
was a lot of circumstantial
Circum-
evidence, but no proof. Nobody caught her on film. Nobody caught the husband.
No, and she got lambasted all over the internet. It was horrible.
Right. But you got to remember and this is why the circumstantial evidence is crazy, but you got to remember when anyone is successful that for any reason in the fishing world, there's a lot of people that are going to hate on them just because. So you kind of have to give her a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But anyway, that's a story for a different day. I don't want to take away from Charlie Nappi and his techniques and his accomplishments. And I'm looking forward to doing part 2 of this. Yeah, so it's multiple species. That's the other piece of circumstantial evidence.
Yeah.
We're going to change
make
Philly
sure-
Man Pete's name to Conspiracy Man Pete.
Here we go. One more here. I don't want to miss any. John, read that out loud for me. I can't see it.
Yeah, in regard to using gulp to target fluke, the gulp does not look like a natural bait such as spearing or killies. You won't find gulp in the ocean. What causes gulp to be effective? So, hey, great point. But look at Charlie Nappi's video. There's no squid strips swimming in the ocean. There's no thin, like flat baits with cut tails. I think it does a good job of mimicking some kind of fish. And if you're ever, fishing in the ocean, you'll often see baits. Like I fish a lot with Skinner, and I'll be like, what kind of bait is that in the water? You know what? I have no idea. And, I'm sure he's seen every kind of bait that he tries to mimic from an artificial perspective. So I think it's the action and the scent with the gulp. Just like Charlie Nappi is using those slit cut squids to kind of mimic, not necessarily a bait, but just movement in the water that looks like a bait.
Yeah, gulp is science. I always say this: gulp is science. Bait is nature. It's natural. I think with gulp, they don't just spray some formula on gulp. That's a laboratory manufactured and tested. They have their own tanks with live fish in them, and they keep changing the formula. And they have that same formula for every freshwater fish that there is, and they test it and they modify it. It's engineered. It definitely works. It catches fish. Skinner did a great video years back, when this was like 2 or 3 years ago, where he had all the different types of artificial plastics, didn't touch gulp, and he got annihilated by the gulp. He had a lot of the other stuff,
Yeah, I mean,
and everything else. So
I mean, look, we've seen it firsthand. But then again, we all use bait. We all caught fish. We used to regularly catch monster fluke off Montauk, never dropping a gulp ever. The one time the first time I ever used gulp was, I want to say 2013 or 14. I'd watched all the Skinner videos, but I just wasn't a believer. And I had my buddy Spiro stopping. We were taking my old yellow boat, the Everglades, out. And I said, yeah, can you pick up 2 pounds of spearing? I have the squid. And he goes, okay. And he buys like a single pack of Peruvian squid, which are monsters, spearing, monster. Yeah. But there was like 12 in the pack. And we didn't realize it until we got out there because he had everything in a bag. I'm like, did you really think this was going to last for 3 guys? So I had bought gulp because I'd watched the Skinner videos, never used them. And we did fantastic on them. But even after that, I wasn't like a true user until we started fishing with Skinner, and we were almost embarrassed to use bait in front of him. And then we really switched for good to gulp.
Yep. Yeah. And like I said, I'm a huge gulp guy. I have thousands and thousands of gulp in the jars. So, but this year I want to change it up a little bit, and we're going to use some big cut pieces legally.
Oh. Yeah, and Brendan, that's the color that Skinner made popular a bunch of years ago. the 6-inch orange gulp. I keep forgetting Brendan's roots are in the Northeast. Brendan, for those of you on, you got to check out his channel, Fisher Family Adventures. Got a kick-ass boat. He's got the type of fishing I love to do down here, which is the Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America. I don't want to offend anybody. 50 miles plus offshore, catching giant grouper, giant American red snapper, knows his stuff.
Here's a great question. How deep is the tuna ground, and how deep do you fish for flounder late in the summer? Catch tuna all the way out to the canyon, but most of the time we're in that 120 to 200 foot range, depending on what time of year it is and how warm the surface water is. I believe that there are flounder all the way out. Well, in the winter, flounder go all the way out to 500 or 600 feet to spawn. They'll go all the way out to the continental shelf. That's where they spawn. The young will swim back all the way into shore, and the larger adult mature fish will head back as well. So I think there is big fluke all the way out there into probably in the summertime 200, 250 feet deep before they head out to the canyon for the winter. So, and I think those
we caught them close to the beach on the ocean side in Montauk this year.
Really
Skinner,
close.
I haven't put the video up. I have it ready. Skinner has a video where I had clients book a Skinner package from Virginia, and we were fishing, I think, 35 to 45 feet in late August, close to the beach, and we had a great day. And then they'll go really tight in the late fall to feed before they head offshore.
We were catching them in 12 feet, remember?
Yeah. They get that. They hit that same body of sand eels and all that other bait that the albies are typically chasing right around Montauk. And again, I'm speaking from Montauk. I can't speak for Jersey and other places.
No, but depending on where you are, where's the go-to spot in the spring? It's get shallow. Start in about 60 feet. If you don't get bit, go shallow, even shallower. Go to 50, go to 40, go to 30, go to 20 until you find them. They're there. The biggest thing, the areas that they pick are based on the bait, where the bait goes first. More often than not, they're looking for that warmer water, spring runoff, all that type of stuff. So those are the great spots.
Yeah, so Real Time Fishing Massachusetts, TJK has definitely a question that you have some intel on, JT. Hey guys, I haven't seen anyone mention using whole mackerel, especially on the ocean side. It's worked well for us here in Rhode Island. We call it the sleeper bait. Yes, so JT's done that. The tournament last year, remember when we teamed up with the two boats?
Yep, we were using mackerel, and I actually did. I want to say it's probably like in the last 4 or 5 next drift videos that I had posted. We were actually, Joey and I had a sabiki rig sitting off the side of the boat to catch the mackerel that were swimming around, and we were using them for bait. So, yep, check out that video. It's a good one.
Yeah, and John Hooker says grouper love gulp. By the way, yes, I've actually on some of the trips I've done this year. Anyone who's been to last couple of years in South Florida knows it's like blowing every day. The few times I've gotten out, I've used gulp and done pretty well using it. Memorably, the trip on Sweeney's boat, I started using gulp and a bucktail, and I was catching African pompano one after the other on it, and a couple smaller red groupers, which weren't in season at the time. Yeah, Brendan says we used to fish the triple wrecks off of New Jersey, and I've caught bigger fluke on the bottom in 200 feet of water when tuna fishing. Makes sense. Supports what JT is saying here.
Absolutely.
Yep. Oh, David, go to the last comment. Superstar 72,858. This is why he's my favorite. Got my noodle rod. Can't wait to try it next year.
Nice.
By the way, that noodle rod caught 2 decent size. In Florida, what are they? Brendan, jump in. What are those nuisance fish called? They fight like crazy. Amberjacks. I'm losing my mind.
It's late.
You're gonna have a lot of fun with that, Rod.
Let's see. Yeah, winter flounder and deep water. Yep. Yep.
We had a couple trips 2 years ago or 3 years ago where, for whatever reason, there were a ton of winter flounder off the windmills in Block. This was either not 24. It was either 23 or 22. There might have been one trip I remember where we had 8 or 9 of them. It was unbelievable.
Really?
And they're like thick too, for their size. They're so much thicker than Fluke.
Here's another good question. Mackerel chunks whole. We were using them whole, but I have heard of really big Fluke that were caught on chunks, bunker chunks as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have mackerel really in the Sound where I am. Where in the Sound are you, Brian? Let us know that. And I say that only because last year there were mackerel everywhere.
Everywhere.
How many really exceptional?
One that I can think of off the top of my head that our buddy Johnny caught. The guy, I have a video out this year where we were on his, he caught a big fish. He caught a 11, 12-pound fish. And
actually, there's 3 of them. There's that one. There's the one that was caught by Doc's friend.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Oh, that's what you're talking about?
Yeah, that one was almost 17 pounds.
Yeah. Joey's was like 35 and an eighth inches.
Yeah. Joey's I forgot about. That's the day we met you, right?
No, we had met long before that, but that was like the first time that we were all out of Montauk together. You had Skip with you.
Yeah, I remember that day.
Oh yeah. When we met on the water. Yep. Yeah, that thing was absolutely enormous. Actually, I have the mount that's coming in over at Northeast Taxidermy in Middletown, so I'll have the actual replica of it.
Brian is 10 minutes north of the Bridgeport ferry. Can't help him there. 10
minutes north of Bridgeport.
That's by the Port Jeff area.
Yeah,
actually, if he shoots across to Long Island, that Shoreham area in June and July, they were catching a ton of fluke there.
Yep, tons of fluke and tons of mackerel. There were mackerel all over the place over there, in between where the that platform is and Port Jeff. Any other? Let's see. We got some more questions here.
Yeah, John Hooker wants to know what other strips we've tried. I mean, sea robin, bluefish, fluke belly, obviously.
We've tried them all. Yep, tried them all.
Bunker, mackerel. Trying to think.
Pretty much all of it.
Think about exceptional fluke on a percentage of total catch basis. 2%, 1%. I don't know. Very small percentage, Pete.
Yeah, it really depends on the year. Like there was 2 or 3 years ago, about three seasons ago, we caught a double digit almost every trip.
Yeah, 3 seasons ago, or I think it's 3 seasons ago, I had 4 straight trips to Block with the double digit. It was unbelievable. But last year we didn't have a lot of those like intermediate flukes, what I'm like the 6-7 pounders. I feel like there weren't many of those. Had a lot of small fluke, which is a good sign, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Had a few big ones, had a bunch 8 pounds and up, but I feel like I didn't see like that 5-6 pound fish like we normally do. Like those used to be the average fish in Montauk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had a few days that were like that last year, but it wasn't like it was. That's for sure. John, I can't see this. It's grayed out when I clicked on it.
Either of you guys fished over by Cuttyhunk, Massachusetts? It's kind of near Martha's Vineyard. I have not.
I have not either. I would certainly like to, though, because there's a lot of good-looking water over there when you look at it on the Navionics map. So, and we got another one.
Yeah, that's Brian just saying he hit the middle grounds a lot last year for bass late night, haven't ventured too far off. And if you recall, Brian said in the beginning that he's kind of new to this and he's really just been doing a lot of striper fishing.
Yep. Watch a lot of Jigging Jerks episodes and Next Drift episodes on YouTube. You'll learn everything you need to know.
Watch Next Drift.
Now,
You can watch me for noodle blackfish action.
Listen, and I tell everybody this. I watched Jigging Jerks and John Skinner a lot, and I learned a lot
from Skinner. Your intelligence will be severely questioned if you're giving me any credit for any of this.
I am, and it's the truth.
Well, listen, we're at an hour and 5 minutes. And
yeah, we did well. This is good. Great time. So we'll be back next Friday, 8 p.m. Tell your friends. We'll watch part 2, and we'll have some more good dialogue, and we'll take your questions and all that good stuff next week. So lots of fun, and Happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah. Take care, all.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.